Hello, I'm Maria.
And I'm Stephanie, and we're your hosts for Creative Conversations with Generation Jones.
A podcast for real people of a certain age who've been living a life of creativity.
Some do it for a living, and some do it just because it feeds their soul. But they all have pearls of wisdom to share and great stories.
Yep, so grab a cocktail or two and join us.
Enjoy.
Yes. Boom. Chakalaka. Today we're interviewing Lillian Taylor. She's a blogger and online humorist, connecting and empowering women over 55 who need a community to help them navigate the single life.
Welcome, Lillian.
Welcome.
And thanks so much for having me today.
Hey, so just an FYI, this is our first Zoom interview for our podcast. And so, just everyone will just be forgiving of some of the Zoom dropouts and the Zoom weird shit. I mean, weirdness. Oops.
Yes.
All right. Okay.
We're not weird.
No. What? Who? It's all good. Okay. So welcome, Lillian. We're not going to be this weird.
Yes, we are. That's what we are.
Yeah, we are.
We are what we are.
Okay.
Okay. Question number one, as usual. What's your favorite cocktail?
My favorite cocktail is vodka and seltzer. And it can be plain seltzer, but that's by default. My preference is pomegranate seltzer or black cherry.
Like this?
Like this. Like this.
Ooh, yeah. All right. Let's clink. Let's virtually clink. Clink,
Virtual
clink,
clinks.
clink, clink.
Cheers.
Cheers, my
Cheers.
sisters.
Ah, yes.
Tasty.
Mm-hmm. Looking like day drinking, right?
Right, exactly, because it is daytime for all of us.
Right.
So, first question, what did you want to be when you were a kid? What was your dream?
I absolutely was fashion driven. As far back as I can remember, I think the majority of little girls are. We like clothes, we like pretty things. And, women of our generation, I think we were always encouraged also to look pretty and have bows in our hair. And I'm grateful that that's changed for our daughters and will be for our daughter's daughter. But I always loved fashion, makeup, hair, all of that. And my mom had a boutique when I was growing up, a woman's boutique. So that was an influence. That definitely was an influence. But again, I was a girly girl anyway, even if my mom didn't have her little boutique. I always loved clothes.
You told us that your mom you followed her on trips, on fashion buying trips?
Oh yeah, so I can't remember now, maybe between 6th and 8th grade when my mom started taking me along to her buying trips. We're in Connecticut, so it was easy to go to New York and Boston. And it's a different type of buying for a small boutique, a small business boutique, but you're still going into the nice shows with the lines. And I learned watching her not only select merchandise, but how to deal with the pushy sales reps who wanted to buy stuff.
Which I'm sure back then it was harder for women than men to do that.
Exactly.
Oh, right, right. So did you go to college? And if you did, what did you study in college?
I did. I never finished my bachelor's degree, but I did go 2 years to a small all-women's college, which was a really nice school. It was a nice experience because it was kind of like for girls like me who were forlorn and didn't know what we wanted to do when we grew up. So I went to a Hartford College for Women, and I did 2 years liberal arts. And when I left, I still didn't know what I wanted to do. So I never went on to get my bachelor's, but I fell into a whole different career and I became a hairstylist. And I had a very successful career in Mystic, Connecticut for 25 years. Then I just decided that I had an opportunity to do something else. And I worked for the Connecticut legislature for 3 years. And I was a committee clerk and legislative aide for a senior House representative there.
That had to have been a big change from hairstyling to politics.
It was. And so I did that and briefly worked, when she retired, briefly worked on the press team, learning how to do, I guess it encompassed a lot of things. You were assigned 10 representatives when you were on a press team that you had to do their social media posting, their press releases. That was all foreign. It was like a crash course in crazy.
Well, that must be like a good thing for you now, because it kind of
it was. I learned a lot.
facilitated
But
learning. Yeah,
I learned a lot, but it was really, really stressful. So we parted ways. And then shortly, just a few months before the pandemic happened. So the pandemic, I have always had one toe dipped into social media with Lillian, and it gave me an opportunity that time to kind of take it seriously and see if I wanted to really create a presence on social media and what I want to do with it and just experiment.
When did you get the itch to start writing?
In my early 50s. I was just going through a lot, as we all do, some more than others, but I definitely had a lot of loss in my life in 1 year. I lost in 9 months my grandfather, who I grew up next door to, and at the time he was living with my mom, my dad, and unexpectedly my boyfriend.
Man.
All in 9 months, I had 3 major hits.
Yeah.
3 major hits. And
that's rough.
I was pretty, it was rough. And I know there are people who go through loss and much worse even than that. But anyway, that's what started the writing thing for me. I never thought about writing before, but I had an overwhelming urge one day that I wanted to write. I came down to my coffee nook. It was 7 in the morning, I remember. And I just saw these words. I just wanted to write. I wanted to write. And I sat there with my coffee, and this is the God's honest truth. It was like 12 hours later, I was still sitting there writing this story. This is the God's honest truth.
It was cathartic for you. Yeah.
It was just, you know what I've learned since I've been writing voyeuristically and reading and watching, trying to learn more about it on my own, is when it's a story, oftentimes it tells itself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's what was happening. There was so much coming out of me, this story about semi-autobiographical. The story was telling itself, which led to over a year of writing, which I thought I was writing a book, but it turned out being a screenplay, but not overnight. You know, the story is I had probably, I don't even remember, I wrote every day for, I'm sure, over a year it was, because I loved it. Like, I looked forward to the routine that I gotten into was I would write at night, and then in the morning, early in the morning, I would read what I wrote.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that goes back to the story tells itself, right? Because sometimes, honest to God, the next morning I would be reading what I wrote and I didn't even remember writing it.
Oh, like you were like channeling the characters.
You're in like a trance.
Yeah.
The best way to describe it when I was writing like that so furiously, and I want to get back there, the best way to describe it is whatever I was writing about, whatever scene, and this was the book, not the screenwriting, because that's a whole different way of writing.
Right.
When I was writing the book and I was writing, telling a story, what was going on, I actually was there in the room, like seeing it like play out like a movie, and I was just writing down what was happening.
Mm-hmm.
That was the way I was writing. And so again, that's what I mean by the story was telling itself.
And that's kind of the way we read. When we read a book, our brain goes to where the characters take you are in the story. And that's
exactly.
How did you learn the difference between writing a book and a screenplay?
Initially, when I even started the book, I really saw it as, I thought, a movie, I guess, but I knew I had no idea how to write a screenplay, but I'm reasonably intelligent, figured I could figure out how to write a book. So that's why I started writing a book. And like I said, I was probably like 3/4 of the way through it, but I really saw it as a movie at the time, I guess, like a Lifetime Hallmark boohoo movie, you know? And,
that people love, right? People love those.
Right,
yes.
they do.
Yes, that was my vision. So I started on YouTube kind of researching screenwriting, and there's so much information out there on anything, but there was a lot on screenwriting. Mm-hmm. And I happened to come across this woman teaching a small screenwriting class in a library. And I watched her and I just connected with her and I felt like, wow, I would love to learn from her. I want to find out more. Well, I'm in Connecticut. And so I lived at the time in the Mystic area, which is closer to Rhode Island. But come to find out, when I researched Gigi, the screenwriter, she was right in New Canaan, Connecticut, which is on the New York side, which literally is like, if you drive it like 2.5 hours, right? So I started researching her. I reached out to her. I was so excited to find out. Anyway, 3 times she read a couple of chapters of my book. She was like, this really should be a pilot for a TV series. There's so much content because it's based on a woman in midlife who's navigating life alone. There's so much content to draw from and to write about, and it's relatable, you know? So I worked with her for almost 2 years. I met with her 3 hours a week, every Thursday from 12 to 3. I met with her and we created a 42-minute, because if it was television, you have
commercials, break time.
That's about the size. So a 42-minute TV pilot called My Real Fake Life.
My Real Fake
Life. Did you send it out? Have you sent it out?
So that's a whole different process. But so when you're an unknown, people are like, oh, you need to get an agent. You need to get representation. You know what? That's a whole nother process. There's so many people and talented people that are doing this, but it's really hard to get representation. And especially I have one thing in terms of screenwriting, you need to have a portfolio. But that's not to say that it can't happen. But it's a longer path. And every now and then I still keep chipping at it. One of the ways when you're an unknown is to enter contests, screenwriting contests, okay? And there's all kinds of them out there. And so one of the things I did when I first entered one of the contests, I did actually place in the top 30 finalists of over 2,200 entries.
That's great.
Wow, good for you.
That was a great start. And I also, now that I think about it, I'm so scatterbrained. I should like collect everything. I remember things that I forgot. And also right at the beginning of the pandemic, I got a partial scholarship to a writer's retreat over in France. But it was like, at the time, even with the partial scholarship, and it's generous, but it's still an expensive thing to do because you have to leave work, you got to take time off. It was kind of an expensive thing, but I was honored that I was offered the partial scholarship to go and write in this castle in France for 2 weeks with 30 other writers.
Wow. That would have been amazing.
That would have been. So after the screenplay, after you wrote that, did you just kind of shelve that for a while, go back to your regular life? And then was that when you entered the realm of social media?
No, I actually started my Facebook page that has my most followings in 2012. And, you know, I just always just posted silly memes. And then not until like 2020, I even started like doing a little bit of blogging and stuff. But once the pandemic happened and I wasn't working, that's when I decided to branch out a little more and experiment with Instagram and put myself out there a little bit more than just posting memes. And as
because you had a blog in there too. You had a blog.
Yes, and I, you know, I at first I used to put myself under pressure that like if you say you're going to write a blog, you have to have fresh stuff every week. And you know, I don't know. No one told me that. I just did it to myself, you know. And I was like, no, I don't. I just can put things out there when I have something to say.
Right. And what were you saying in your blog?
Oh, you know, it's my random, I call it my menopausal maze of a brain. Okay. Whatever struck me, but really struck me. And I was like, yeah, I need to say something about this. So there's no real rhyme or reason to it. I did do like one of my first things that I did was my photo essay, which is important to me. And I was, you know, just dabbling in writing. And I think now that I want to go back, revisit it, is Invisible. that was one of the first things I ever wrote as an essay, as a blogger or whatever. And it was okay, but I was probably 7, 8 years younger then. And I think I could make it even more powerful. And my goal would be to make it even more meaningful if I were to go in and rework it. But that's what they say about writing, right? Real writing is just rewriting.
Right.
And rewriting.
And
rewriting,
I saw on one of your pages, it said, what was it? Over 50, invisible or invincible.
Exactly.
I was like,
it's a choice. I've decided.
Or you can be a little of both, you know?
I think there's nothing wrong with either. But it struck me how I've been feeling so invisible for most of, once I hit my 50s. And I didn't realize it until I wrote that piece, and that's what stuff comes out. And so when I saw invisible or invincible, I was like, you know what? It is a choice, isn't it? About how much you allow yourself to feel invisible and how much you choose to be invincible.
I think it also has to do with where you are in your life. When I was in my 50s, I had a little kid. I had my child at 40, so I had a 10-year-old.
Yeah.
I didn't have any time to think about whether, anybody gave a crap about looking at me or if I was invisible or invincible. I just had to take care of this kid.
Right.
So, it really depends where you are.
No, I absolutely agree with you on that, where you are in your life. But I guess to take that one step further, I think that question of invisible or invincible is going to bubble up at some point in your life.
Well, that's true. That's true. But also the question is, who are you invisible to? Like, do you feel invisible to everybody or just to the younger people, or, you know what I'm saying? Like,
that's a really good
I don't
question.
feel invisible. I don't feel invisible with my peers at all. Kids in their 20s, they look at you and go, I don't really care what they think, honestly. I care less. So,
no. Not so much the younger generation, because we were all young. We all know if we're blessed enough to get old, I don't really care what they think, the younger generation. But just overall in society, like in a public surrounding, whether it's the grocery store or, where there's lots of public around, I just see it. I just see it and feel it often.
So to that end, is that related to what you're doing with your social media presence? Is it something to overcome that, to help other women deal with that issue?
Yeah, that's just one of the many conversations that I'm hoping to open up. Not sure how yet, because I would love to do more, I think for 2023, things like this, where you have like an open forum. You know how we see people go live, and you can go live and invite people to have conversations. I've had one toe tiptoeing over the line in social media, trying to make a presence, but afraid to make a stand. Do you know what I'm saying? Or say what I'm about, what my message is. But I think it was because I didn't know exactly what my message was. Now I'm getting clear on my message. If I'm going to be on social media, if somebody says, what's your message? My message is, I'm a single woman in my 60s that's been navigating life alone for 10 years. By choice, a lot of it. So I know there's a whole community of women like myself.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And a lot from the end of the spectrum. Some who are like driven to find a partner, right? And are out there putting themselves out there because they want to be out there to find somebody to have a partner. to others like me who are, you know, a little scared to re-enter and do all of that. There's a lot of insight and knowledge and just fun to be had in a community with people who want to be there.
Now, when you were saying about opening up in the community, it took you a long time to show your face on your page, because I followed your page for a long time because it was funny. I like funny stuff. And it took you a long time to show your face. I was like, oh, that's what she looks like. Because you always just had that little cartoon. And I was like, oh, look how beautiful she is. Why didn't she show her face? I was like, if I looked like her, I'd be like all over the place.
There she is.
I will say, you know, I was terrified, and really on a more serious note too, because it had been, I think it was 8 years where I just saw the red lips in the glasses, and part of it in the culture of our country, and you know, all the negativity and the racism that was coming out, I cannot honestly say that when I decided to show my face, I wasn't a little nervous about that as well. And I was, but I decided to do it. And it was a funny comment, was from a man in Italy. And he left a comment and he said, I followed you for the last couple of years. You're a little darker complected than I thought.
Oh, okay. Honest. That was honest. Oh, God.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It really was. And I think he followed it with, because I know he didn't want me to misunderstand it. He said, you know, I think he followed it with, I love your post or something like that, you know, but other than that, you know, nobody has said anything, but it was a big deal for me to show my face, because I thought there was something kind of fun about being a mystery too, and nobody knowing what
Tell us the story about when you did it, how you did it with your friends when you were having a little party.
Yeah. So anybody who follows me, I think most people who follow me consistently know that one of my dearest, oldest friends, seriously, probably almost 40 years in friendship, she lives up on Lake Winnipesaukee in New Hampshire. It was actually my 60th birthday. We always do my birthday together. So I was up at her place, and you know, I was saying, I want to do this, but I don't want to do it. We're sitting outside, and she's like, just goading me. Do it, let's do it. Come on, it'll be fun. Do it.
Don't lie. I does sound like me. Just do it.
Yeah. She's like, just do it. She was like relentless, you know? So finally, and I may have left this part out. I'm sure it influenced me after a couple of cocktails. I'm sure I left that part out.
Yeah.
So I'm there doing it, and I'm so nervous, and you know, whatever. And she's like, just watching me, because I had the camera set up on a tripod anyway, on the phone, and she's just watching me. So then I do it, and I did it live, and then I shut my phone off. And then she's like, what are you doing? Don't you want to know how many people see it? I'm so excited. And I shut my phone off for like, I don't know, it was like 2 or 3 hours, because I was terrified. I was terrified I was going to come back on and see that like maybe 3 people saw it or cared enough to watch it. But when I turned it back on, I remember it was like 2 or 3 hours later, and there was over 600 people. And it really did nicely I had very
boosted your ego. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Sure, yeah.
So, but it is a fun story. It really is. And I don't regret showing my face finally. I think it's helping me get more comfortable with showing my face and talking. I'm terrible at lives, but I'm better this year than I was last year at it. I'm getting more comfortable in my skin. And I think part of the reason I'm getting more comfortable and better at it is because I finally have gotten clear on my message and why I'm out here.
So let's take a pause on that note and have a little cocktail break, shall we? Cheers. And cheers with you.
Cheers.
Cheers, boom. And we will be right back with part 2.
So Lillian, tell us about your online store and what it took to put that together and what you sell and all that good stuff.
So since I think anyone who follows me knows that I kind of have a snarky kind of sense of humor,
Which is what we love.
And so I call it my snarky mug collection. So my snarky mug collection comes out of the first mug I created, which I have right here, is, there you go.
Yeah.
I've been mammed, right?
Yes,
I've
ma'am.
been mammed because, you know, some people don't have a problem with it. I get it. And even geographically. And my parents are from the South, right? And y'all are in the South, right?
Yeah.
So I get that it means for most people respect, that, you know, well-deserved respect and honor. But I'm not alone. There are a lot of women like myself where the first time someone called me ma'am, I actually turned around to see who they were speaking
Right, it's like,
to.
excuse me?
It just, I expected to see some older woman, right? Some old woman. And then I realized the more I was called ma'am, like, I'm not one of those women. I know they mean it with respect, but I don't like it. To this day, when somebody calls me ma'am, it's like nails down a chalkboard for me. So I thought it'd be fun to make fun of it, right? If you want to empower yourself on certain things, just make fun of it. So I don't even know really the exact moment to put it on the mug came, but I was just like, I think a couple of my girlfriends and I would be like, oh, you've been mammed, you know, it became a joke. So then I thought that would be fun. So anyway, that was my first one, my I've been mammed. Which
I think they're great. I think they're great. I love them.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And they're fun. And they're, you know, and then I just started adding to the other little snarky sayings. Like there's one I have out there that says, I think your ma'am is showing, you may want to tuck that in.
That's funny.
You know, so I call it my snarky mug collection, and I put that together. But then the other part of it is then creating the actual Facebook store. You do have to be a business page to have that Facebook store. So that was interesting, learning what a process that is. It's quite a process, but I'm very proud of myself that even though it took some time, I was able to do that. Because don't forget, not only do you want your product out there, then you also have to have payment out there, and there's, you know, more than just PayPal out there, and it all has to come together. So it was really a learning curve for this old girl.
And then the marketing on top of it.
But I was able to do it. And
did you take any classes or anything?
Took a lot of online classes, meaning webinars, workshop. I did invest into short-term classes because you're only going to get so much free information from anything. But one of the challenges I find, even still, not just for marketing, for anything, everybody's selling something, whether it's their coaching services, how to do this better, how to do that better. Everybody, it's saturated. So in the beginning, I got sucked down a few rabbit holes. Fortunately, not, you know, huge investments and stuff, but I'm sorry, you know, $250, $500 later, and you find out what, you know what I mean? That's a lot of money to me, and that's on me. So I was too trusting, as that's how a lot of these people out here, I'm sure, make their money, is people just thinking they're going to be saved by this guru or whatever. So now I'm very judicious. And if I throw even a little bit of money, I've done my research first and not just thrown the money at it, cross my fingers and hope I get something out of it. So the things that I do follow, people that I follow, webinars that I attend, I got very involved with in the Connecticut, the Small Business and Women's Development Center. They offer a lot of free resources for women in business. You have to do, no matter what, you have to do your own work. And once I really understood that, instead of thinking I just had to sign up for something and things were going to magically happen, you know, it took things and myself to a different level as far as the amount of time and education that I got out of it.
Right. What advice would you have for other women your age who want to make an online presence?
Well, I think since I started 10 years ago, it's definitely changed a lot in the sense of people are, as we all know and see and witness, no matter what pages and profiles we follow, people are not nice. So I think that, and that's not everyone, but there are a lot of people who just really enjoy not being nice online.
That's very true.
Right?
That's quite the
That is
trolls,
very
yeah.
true, yeah.
Experience, but I see it in other things, or when you read other people's comments on pages that you follow, there's a lot of unkind people who just make it their business to go, yeah, you know, that's what they live for. So it wasn't like that when I first got online. And so I think first and foremost, if you decide that you want to make a presence online, that's something that you seriously have to acknowledge and determine whether or not you have a thick skin. I definitely have a thicker skin than I used to. I used to take it personally when people would unfollow me. And you know what? It's not that I don't care, but I don't. You know what I'm saying? Because if they don't want to be there, I don't want them to be there. I want people who want to be there that follow me. I'd rather have that, you unfollow me, than to goad me and leave unkind remarks. So, but that took a while for me to get that thicker skin and not take it so personally. So you really have to think about that before you put yourself out there. It's taken me 10 years. And the last 2 that I have actually really begun to, I don't know, expose is the right word for it, but that's the word I'm going to use, expose myself, my vulnerabilities, and open myself up. Because that said, I have met the most incredibly kind, nice, supportive, encouraging people through my page that I am grateful for every day.
Because you're authentic. You're showing yourself, not pretending to be someone else.
And that's something that's scary to do for in front of people that you don't know. You know, in the social media realm, it's a very scary thing to allow people to see your authentic self. And I think that's why it took me so long, because it wasn't them. It was my own fears of showing myself, my authentic self. And
gotta fight those fears.
Yeah, exactly. Got to fight that fear. It's a new part of the journey to continue, first of all, personally discovering my authentic self at this age. But now I'm comfortable with sharing it.
Did you find that people started responding to you differently when you started sharing more of your?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You were talking about a pain point. Tell us what that is.
One of the marketing rules of copywriting, that text that you see in there, is you really, in order to be effective, have to speak to your audience's pain point and offer a solution. That's what makes it relatable, right? When you speak to pain point. If you're just trying to get someone to read your essay on your blog is on, you know, Hallmark movies, and the pain point that you might be speaking to is it's hard to find something that I can relate to and enjoy watching on television without swearing. That could be somebody's pain point. Personally, not mine.
Not mine, not ours.
Mine either.
But does that make sense, right?
Yeah.
That's somebody's pain point. And then you offer the solution. I discovered this movie on the Hallmark Channel that really brought home family values, made me think of my childhood growing up in a rural community, and it left me feeling great by the end of the film. So that's the pain point, and you offered the solution. You marketed Hallmark Channel, and hopefully that's when in the comments people will say things like, Yeah, I don't like all the swearing that's going on cable.
What
and
the fuck
I
is wrong
can't
with
watch
them?
TV
Right?
with
Jesus.
What
my
the fuck
the
is wrong
hell?
with them? Seriously.
Hell is their problem. Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, so that's what I meant. That's what I meant by speaking to the pain point and
Got it.
offering
Yep.
solution.
Yep.
That's what, whether you're selling a product or just a conversation,
Right, right,
that's what gets people to engage
Right.
because it's relatable.
right.
Right.
And
Right.
I've just come to learn and understand that. And when I put it into play, I find that my comments, people comment more and my engagement goes up.
So what are your plans for the future?
This last year, I've been looking for a real job again, but I do work. You know, I've just been working in retail, and I've been working in where I'm living now in a upscale wine store, which is really kind of funny because
All
Ah, there you go.
Yeah.
I do. I work in
Be
a,
drinking all the
I work in a
profits,
upscale
right?
wine store.
Sorry, I was late to work.
Sorry.
sampling
If
the
only.
product.
If only. But
Yeah.
it's funny because I had started dabbling when I first started working in the wine store. I wanted to do one because I started playing around with TikTok this summer too. And I was like, I need to just do a hashtag story every week called Wine Stories.
Oh, yes,
Yes.
absolutely.
Get 1 million followers.
Absolutely.
Yes.
You will get.
I've got some.
Yeah.
I've got some.
Do
but then
them,
I
do
just-
them. They're great.
I just
They're
got-
great.
Isn't that fun?
Right,
Yeah.
really? I just got off my shift. Let me tell you, this
Yeah,
person
wine
said blah, blah, blah,
stories.
blah, blah. Hashtag wine stories. Yeah.
Oh, let me tell you, I
Yeah.
got some.
Yep. I love it.
Although I
love-
just pitched to them just the other day, actually, because they're owned by a huge grocery chain, national grocery chain, and they have several of them here in the Northeast. But I just pitched to them, I don't know what's going to happen, to let me do some of their content creating
Mm-hmm.
for their wine stores. Because
that
listen,
would be awesome. Yeah.
I'm at that point now. I'm so proud of myself. What do I got to lose? And I'm good at it. You know what I
Right.
mean? And
Right.
not just text, because I look at it's a big chain and they have that generic social media stuff that, you know what I mean? And
That
I've
nobody
been
looks
looking at it,
at.
I'm looking at
But
it.
that's
and
the way to
finally I
get,
said,
that's the way to get
Exactly, and
like
I-
what you want. You
Right.
start in there and you say, hey, I can help you with this. And you start it and it just
Exactly.
goes
And that gets-
on and it becomes
Exactly.
another
So I
job.
And that also gets back to authenticity because
Exactly.
people
And so I
respond
just
to
pitched-
people being authentic rather than
Yep.
all the rote,
Yep.
you know, the stuff that
Absolutely.
everybody does.
I still have some work to do to follow up on it. So I would
Mhm.
love to get into that. But I'm going to really just recently made the decision that I'm going to invest in myself to get some training on how to be a motivational speaker, because I want to talk to women about being in our 60s, what the good parts about it, but the stuff that people don't talk about either. You know, the scary stuff, especially the single women, us single women who are on our own. And, you know, there's some scary stuff about being this age and being on your own. But I want to talk about all of it. I think I said to you when we spoke once before, you know, nothing against influencers or the pages that are focused on beauty and fashion and looking younger. God bless them. But that's not what I want to use my platform for.
Mhm.
I want to talk about the real stuff.
Well, people in our age group will respond to that. You know, there are thousands
I
of
hope
women
that.
that need
Yeah.
to hear that.
Yeah, and let me just, I feel bad now that I said I want to talk about the real stuff. I apologize to anyone that I possibly could have offended with that, because I probably shouldn't have said it that way. There's plenty of conversation about beauty, looking younger in your 60s, what to wear and what not to wear in your 50s and 60s. I just think there's plenty of conversation about that on so many platforms. I want to talk about the things that we are not talking about, but need a community to build support and encouragement for. That's
Excellent.
that's my
Excellent.
goal.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent.
And that needs to be said.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And on that note, we're going to move on to our game show.
Our game
We're
show.
going to stop asking you questions, and we're going to ask you
Okay.
the questions for our game show called What Decade Did This Phrase or Word Come From? So we're going to give you a word or phrase from the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s. And you tell us where you think it came from, okay?
Okay.
And don't worry if you don't know. That's all right. You probably will. Okay.
All right, the first word
Is boss.
boss.
That's boss.
Boss.
Boss. Yep. That's boss.
Like something's boss.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
What decade?
All right. I'm gonna guess 80s.
60s.
1960s.
1960s. That's boss, meaning it's great. That's
Wow.
fantastic.
Yeah. Okay, next one. Foxy Mama. What decade? Foxy Mama.
I know you recall that because I was too.
You were?
Yes, I was.
I wasn't. I feel rejected.
Foxy Mama.
Oh, you're a foxy mama,
Foxy
don't
Mama,
worry.
yeah.
I mean, I remember it, but honestly, I don't want to believe that it went past the 70s.
It was
That's
the 70s.
right.
That's right.
That is right. The 70s. I like
Sexy
it.
lady.
Yeah, because it's so like laughing-ish, isn't it?
Yes.
It's so
right.
corny.
Yeah, TV sitcom. All right.
Okay, the next one is Finsta.
Finsta.
Sounds like somebody with a Boston accent.
It sure does.
Doesn't it?
Come
Sounds
on.
like somebody with a Boston accent. Let's see. Insta. I'm gonna say 80s.
It's actually from 2010. It's an alternative or secret Instagram account only for your close friends.
Oh, like Friend Insta.
Friend Insta. Friend
Oh.
Insta. It's a secret Instagram
Wow.
account.
Oh my God. Well,
Yeah.
Our kids.
I
Our
have
offspring.
kids.
learned
never
Our
heard of
something
that.
new
yeah,
today.
our kids.
I never heard of that.
Because I do. As soon as you said that, I thought Boston.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
It sounds like my
yeah.
people in Boston.
Okay, and here's a current phrase that they're using today. Let's see if you know what it means. I didn't know what it meant. Okay, it's called yassify.
Spell it.
Yassify. Yassify.
Yes.
What is it? Y
Yassify.
A.
SSIFY. This is a current phrase used by the kids. I had no
I
idea
have
what it
no
was.
idea.
It is to yassify is to glam someone up until they're almost unrecognizable.
Okay. That almost sounds like a RuPaul thing, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It does. It sounds like RuPaul.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It could be. I don't
Yeah.
know. There's a lot of them on TikTok that
Although-
do that.
I was gonna say when you watch some of these the younger women with their makeup tutorials, yeah, and I'm like, and so they're telling a story while they're putting on like full on like glamorous makeup, and I get so lost in like watching it, I don't even know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Because they
I
have
know,
all these
I know.
tools and contours and right.
Uh-huh.
And I get, how do they talk and put it all on at the same
I
time?
know,
It's a
it's crazy.
science. Seriously, it's a skill.
It is definitely a skill. Yeah. Not a skill that
So funny.
not a skill that we need necessarily. It's
No,
a skill that they
no,
have, and good for them.
No. So Lillian, thank you so much for talking with us.
Can you tell us where folks can find you online?
Yes.
Sure. First, thank you so much for inviting me to spend some time with you and share my story and get to know you and see you in person. I really enjoyed myself. So thank you, ladies. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. It's
Thanks
been
for being with us.
fun.
So I am on Facebook. It's Lillian Taylor or at Lillian. My website is lilliantaylorwriter.com. And my Instagram is LillianTaylor.148. Oh, and my TikTok is LillianTaylor00. And I'm kind of new to that. Like I said, I'm still building an audience on Instagram and TikTok, but I'm finding TikTok voyeuristically to be a lot of fun too.
I know. I get sucked into it. She makes fun of me.
Yeah,
I'm like, oh my
not my
God.
thing.
I have
It's not my jam.
certain people that I always go in there. I'm like, what are they up to now?
Well, all of that information will be in our show notes.
I know.
All those links will be in our show notes, and so
Well,
listeners can certainly find that and find you. And we encourage folks to find you. And again, we thank you for being with us. And just to reiterate, you can find us on our Facebook page, Instagram, YouTube, and our TikTok page. And,
Right. And you can hear our podcast wherever you get your podcasts.
Indeed.
And as our Aunt Millie always said,
I can't wait.
we gotta do our. As Aunt Millie always said,
shoulders back, knockers up, and
cheers.
Cheers.